let's have a little fun. So if you could take one of these cars that you did an inspection on your checklist and take it home for the weekend and put it through its paces, which one would you pick?
Before I got there, I would have said one of the McLarens or the Ferrari. I mean, on paper, the
Mm.
Ferrari, because I had an Alfa Romeo that had three quarters of a Ferrari engine. It was one of my favorite cars ever, and so I would have picked that just sight unseen, literally. But once I was in them, okay, number one, not the Ferrari, not unless somebody could get me uh,
Hmm.
uh not unless someone could bring me food and
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
bedpan or catheter bag or something, because
You're
getting
stuck in
in
it.
and out,
Yeah,
oh yeah, getting in and out of those things, oh my, it looks bad, but then when you try to do it, I mean, I would say you have to be a gymnast that teaches taekwondo and is double jointed to get in and out of some of those cars. So I would say of all those types of vehicles, the ones which are meant for reality, for real people with that kind of money to spend, of course, would have to be the Aston Martin and the Lamborghini. Those I did not have any trouble getting in and out of. I mean, you have to go down into them, and there's a little bit of an edge on the seat, but I'd say they're probably about as easy to get into as a Corvette, maybe even easier. Especially the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin had very large, soft doors, and so that'd be a lot easier. Oh, that's the sound of the Aston Martin. I mean, this was the Vanquish. This wasn't the little podunk
yeah.
Vantage, for the lowly folk. You know the the director that's only directed like four or five movies that just went to a film festival or something. No, this is the guy who owns the film franchise that has all the little toys on the shelf. He gets the Vanquish, the twin turbocharged V12, the eight
Mhm.
speed. Yeah, that would probably be the one to take for the weekend.
Yeah, but to your point, maybe that's why all these vehicles are being bought by, athletes, because you got to be a contortionist athlete in order to get into one of these things. I
And
mean,
collectors, I think.
yeah, that too.
Hmm.
It's funny that you said that. We were looking at there was a beautiful late model, late 90s Trans Am that I saw, and I saw Pontiac Trans Ams, at that time. And it was this beautiful red one. I walked by and I was showing my wife, and she says, "There's no way in God's green earth I could get into one of those things right now." You know, maybe 30 years ago. And of course, they literally had bucket seats in the back where your rear end
Right.
literally went into a bucket style seat just to keep your head from bouncing off of that glass,
Well,
which
we called those
attached.
insurance seats anyway,
That's all they
like in the
were.
Porsche 911. That's just meant
Correct.
so that it's not a two-seater on paper.
That's exactly right. But it's interesting to hear about your endeavors going to go get these. And like I said, we're proud of the relationships that we have with our dealer subscribers and the opportunity and privilege to go out and have access to the vehicles. And it just helps us to bring the information that much more level of accuracy to our subscribers. And certainly having the opportunity for these exotics is just just a great privilege, as you know. We appreciate you sharing the experience, but any other takeaways, from going up and dealing with, again, this type of level of automobile, and what does that say as far as, in your opinion, the industry? Is it are they here to stay? Are they going to be gone tomorrow? I mean, everybody just thinks with the average price of a new one pushing, it's over 40,000, and these things are just, half a million and up. Is there still a big market for a lot of these things? You mentioned, some of these McLarens sitting there, starting to, take a little root and age on that dealer's lot.
Oh no, no, the McLarens weren't. They didn't have a lot of inventory because they were sitting on them. I think they had a lot of inventory because they were able to get them and they wanted them.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
it was like during the Depression. During the Depression, a lot of automakers went out of business. Rolls-Royce, uh, Packard, uh, Pierce Arrow, none of the super rich car manufacturers went out of business during the Great Depression.
Well, I would say there was a few exceptions. Cord, Duesenberg, and Auburn. Those were some of the high-end cars of the day. They didn't literally go out in during the early 30s, but none of those
Exactly.
made it into into the 40s. I mean, one of my favorite cars of all time is the Auburn Bowtail Speedster, and that was a
Oh yeah.
1935 model. And I also love Duesenberg, and the Duesenberg was probably the most expensive automobile made at that time. It was just the wrong time. They had all these Hollywood A-listers that were buying these things, custom coach builds, et cetera. And when you look at an automobile in the 30s, that was drawing 25, $30,000 for an automobile custom coach. It was tough to keep those production lines going. There was a reboot of that. They have Duesenberg 2s that a company out in California bought up all the chassis, and
Hmm.
they bought up the chassis that hadn't been finished, and they got all the tool and die from Auburn Cord Duesenberg. And they started building these. They did them in the 80s, early 90s, I believe. I'll have to check those, but it's an interesting story where they were building these, obviously different power plants driving them, but that's how they were servicing some of these older models. And let me tell you, when you see a Duesenberg at one of these Concours events, they're they're just impressive as hell. And they only made a handful of them. They didn't make a whole lot of them, but boy, it's one of the most impressive automobiles ever.
Didn't Jay Leno recently acquire like a very, very, very rare Duesenberg? Is one that was custom built, and I think
Well,
it
they were all
was in
custom built.
Hawaii. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
they were all custom built. I mean, the models they have are all based on the chassis numbers,
right.
and it just depends. It's kind of like the early Rolls-Royce and Bentleys. A lot of those coaches were custom built.
Oh, even Cadillacs back then.
Absolutely. And that's where Harley Earl cut his teeth. Harley Earl was a custom upfitter in California. And General Motors saw what he was doing with Cadillacs for some of with his coach building ability out
Was
in
that
Los
Fisher
Angeles.
body?
That was before, well, they would get a Fisher body, but
Because Fisher
he
Body was also a custom carriage builder that would build bodies for these chassis, and of course it was acquired by General Motors.
correct. Body by Fisher was a name that you saw on thresholds of vehicles, well into the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And but Harley Earl, he cut his teeth from what I've read historically, doing custom coach building out in California, and where for Hollywood, celebrities. And he was taking Cadillac coaches, to your point, just much like Duesenberg coaches, and customizing them for them. And he got picked up by General Motors, and he started doing all of their design, late 30s and going through World War, the 40s, and then coming out in the 50s. When you look at all the Tri Five vehicles, the 55, 6, and 7 Chevrolets,
Yep.
that's all Harley Earl. And when you look at, and he designed vehicles up until the early 60s. I think the last one he designed was the Riviera.
A Riviera, I was going to say, yep.
Yeah, because the
Yep.
Tornado came out a few years later, and that was not Harley Earl, but because my dad had a Tornado, so I was very familiar with that particular product. But when you look at the coach building and what was done, to make these vehicles unique, they were really one-off vehicles, every one of them. I mean, when you look at custom coach builders like you have today,
Yep.
you look at
There's nothing like it.
no,
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you and it really helps out.